Tina. Tina jumped on there. Hi, Tina. So I'll have to be on my best behaviour. I'm always on my best behaviour. What am I saying? So my name's Mark Clayton. I'm the safeguarding lead at CAP. I've been here 5.5 years now. The idea is I cover everything safeguarding, both at the hub here as the support hub, but also linked into all our services, whether that's debt, life skills, job clubs, coaching, everything really, and working with partner churches. The idea of get my camera right. The idea of the workshop is just to explore safeguarding a bit more, so we can ask questions and look at things. It's not training, it's not a repeat of the safeguarding training. It's slightly different. Yesterday I did a similar workshop for the new debt centre managers and coaches, and obviously when I'm doing theirs, I've got things that I really want to get across to them, because they have to record things on the debt clients that safeguarding wise, and there's because risk issues about them visiting and that. So there are key things that I really do want to share with them. With yourselves, it's a bit more about kind of me suggesting some things, and maybe you might have some questions around that, and also you may have some things that you do want us to look at, and I'll touch on those at the end, kind of things that we're hoping to develop. So as I say, this everybody here today, you will have different levels of safeguarding knowledge and experience, and that's fine. Some people I know that work with CAP are like myself and maybe come from a social work background. Other people have done safeguarding things in their jobs or within church or other charities and organisations. Some people it's quite new to them, and that's fine. We all bring different skill sets. So we're not going to go through the training. The training's there separately. It is interactive, so there's a couple of tasks for you to do. You can ask questions whenever. So if you want to ask a question, I think it was about 20 plus of us. So please do put your hand up. But if we don't, Emily or I don't spot us, please unmute and kind of grab our attention, because it's important to ask questions when you're on a topic rather than maybe kind of coming back to them at the end. Thanks, Emily. So the slides that we're sharing, by the way, Emily will send out to you subsequently, so you'll have the slides. So if you want to refer back to anything, please do so. And obviously she's recording it, so you can always watch it again if you want. So we're going to talk, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about expectations of you as a safeguarder. We might touch briefly what isn't and isn't safeguarding, and they've got a little exercise for you there. But we're going to really try and focus on risk, different levels of risk, and also thresholds, because they're the things that crop up. People generally know what safeguarding is, but they're saying, when do I know that there's a risk, or when do I need to be seeking advice? When do I need to be recording something? When do we need to be taking action? So it's all those things about risk thresholds that kind of maybe it helps to explore a bit more. We will touch very briefly on reporting and recording, but not nearly as much as we had to yesterday, because anyway, we'll come to that. And we're gonna just talk about at the end about keeping you safe, because that's a really important thing, and there might be other things there that you want us to explore going forward, which is when we'll touch on that. So expectations of you. What we're not expecting people to be is experts, and we're not expecting people to be social workers. At some points when you're working with your members in life skills and job clubs, you may feel like a social worker at times, because people come with their baggage. They come with their lives and their life skills and their needs and their job club needs and any other need. They're just part of it, but they will have they'll be carrying things with them, and that's what we know about the clients and the members we work with, is that they're not just working with one thing in isolation. There may be that they've got addiction issues. There may be about in a domestic abuse setting. They may have got historical abuse issues. They may have mental health, may have physical health issues. They may be experiencing suicide ideation. All sorts of harm and abuse and issues that they may be navigating, and you'll touch on those at times, and but we're not social workers. That's why we have social workers. And if we are really worried about people, there are agencies we can refer to. So we can refer people to social services. We can do letters to GPs. We can help people do referrals for addiction support. So there's lots of things we can do, but we're not the social workers. But it's important to remember that. Don't think it's all on us or all on you. So what kind of I would say we would expect of anybody is that you have some awareness of key issues that people will be facing, and we've kind of just touched on some there, that you'll have knowledge of the safeguarding procedures, so you'll know what to do. And very importantly, you'll know who your church safeguarding officer is, or the safeguarding officer that's assigned to your centre, whether it's life skills or job clubs or whatever, that you'll know who to contact. And very importantly, you'll be prepared to share. That it's important that if somebody tells you something and you've got a concern, you need to be prepared to go and seek advice on that. So that's what we very briefly, because this has been in the training before. When we talk about safeguarding, we generally talk about statutory safeguarding, which is for children and adults at risk. So children, about 20% of the population. If we look at the other next slide, adults at risk, and adults at risk are adults who are entitled to receive social care. They might not be receiving it, but they're entitled to it. We used to talk about those adults being vulnerable adults, but it's like a lot of things, terms move on, and it's not appropriate to talk about vulnerable adults now. But we talk about adults at risk, but they're only a very small percentage of the population. So most of the adults, because you're working with adults, so most of the people you'll have contact with will just be adults. There won't be adults at risk, and there won't be children. And so there's less of a statutory duty to, if there's a concern about them, for example, to contact social services or the police even. But those adults, as I'm saying to you, will come with a number of issues, and they may need help, they may need support. It may be more about well-being rather than statutory safeguarding. But at CAP, we put all this under the umbrella of safeguarding. So safeguarding is statutory, so it's where we do have to contact social services, but it's also that well-being and making sure that people are safe generally. So yeah, that's what that slide explains. So I've got a little task. So on this slide, what I'd like you to do is read the statements in the green boxes and have a think about whether you feel that is definitely something that would be safeguarding, definitely not something that would be safeguarding, or might be. And just have a think about them, and then what I'm going to ask you to do is in turn put your hand up and unmute and share one of those, and where you think it should sit, and maybe just very, very briefly why. So if you think psychosis sits a certain place, why, and what would make it move, maybe. So just if people have a quick read, and when you're ready, so we don't have everybody unmuting at the same time, if people wouldn't mind doing their hands up symbol at the bottom of the screen, the hand symbol at the bottom. So I used it before. There we go. Chris has got us off and running. Chris, unmute and share.
Yeah, I think definite safeguarding issue is current suicide attempt.
Yeah, because it's current, and it might require emergency response if somebody's telling us something. That absolutely doesn't matter about what type of adult they are, whether a child or adult. Absolutely, we're doing something straight away. Thank you, Chris. Lisa.
Hi there, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So the ones that kind of caught my eye straight away was the hitting the partner and slapping the child. This is obviously classed as physical abuse, so I believe that should be under safeguarding.
Yeah, absolutely. Slap it. Well, we say, I think we've used smacking a child in the past, and England is still, it's deemed acceptable to chastise your child, smack them. Scotland, and I think even Wales have actually changed their regulations now, so that any form of smacking is safeguarding, and but England may follow suit. But obviously, if you were slapping a child and causing an injury, it's going to be potentially safeguarding anywhere. And obviously, hitting a partner, we'd put that under domestic abuse, which is definitely safeguarding, and seen as safeguarding for everybody. Yeah. Who was next? Maggie?
Okay, you've got controlling a partner's bank cards, which could or could not be safeguarding. It depends if the person whose bank cards you've got is an elderly person in a care home or has some sort of mental illness that means they're spending inappropriately and getting themselves into debt. So it's I would put that in a possible, because it depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, no, I agree. Misuse of it would be a really good way of saying it. If somebody's misusing somebody's bank account card or controlling without consent, then that could be safeguarding. But obviously they may be doing it just to help them out with consent. So you're absolutely right. You'd want a bit more context for that, wouldn't you? Alan?
I would sort of think that suicide ideation could be a safeguarding issue, but it's one of those sort of borderline things. It may be. It just depends how persistent that problem is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Context is key for that, because somebody may say that they experience suicide ideation, but they don't feel that now. They've got no plans to self-harm. They're actually got a mental health support worker, and they feel quite good now, but they're flagging it. Whereas somebody might be saying, "Oh no, it's increasing, and I've actually got thoughts about how I would do it," which would be more concerning, wouldn't it? Yeah. So. Absolutely. Thank you, Alan. Who was next? Jerry, and then Louise. So Jerry. You with us, Jerry? If you want to unmute. Not sure. Louise, shall we come to? Can we come to you?
Yeah, I was thinking stealing from an elderly relative would go towards the safeguarding, because of the elderly, potentially the elderly relative might be the one who's vulnerable, as opposed to maybe the one who's stealing. So you'd be concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, elderly can be a bit of a red herring, can't it?
Right.
We've got elderly people that are very with it, and others that struggle a bit more. But the stealing's the key word, isn't it? It's without consent, that, and implies some kind of risk. Yeah. Harriet.
Hi, good morning. I had in mind the alcohol addiction, because coming with a state of unrest, people around you, and safeguarding yourself and others around you, if they were to turn up, absolutely drunk or something, it could be something that we'd need to think about. Yeah.
So it's and again, there's also all levels of addictions. We talked about alcohol there, but it could be drugs. We have people we work with that gambling addicts, and I suppose it's the impact it's having on you. So we know that there's people that have addictions and dependencies that manage, and they are able to manage their lives. Other people, it will impact more. So it would depend on a kind of the impact on them, and whether there's an impact on other people. But then obviously that wider thing is clearly an issue. So we would certainly be interested in supporting people. If somebody's sharing that they've got any addiction, then I'm always interested in do they want it? Have they got any support with that? Professional support, and are they interested, and if so, can we support them in accessing that help? So it's one of those you'd want to put under maybe and explore, I guess. Jenny?
Yeah, so another one I think is working for cash only, because it could be symptomatic of something broader, around sort of migration or of sort of bigger issues, I guess. So
yeah, it could be an indicator of modern day slavery. Doesn't mean it is, but we've had people we've worked with maybe got learning disabilities and are working for cash and getting vastly underpaid. So again, in itself, it's not a safeguarding issue, but it's certainly an indicator of something that somebody may be being taken advantage of. So it's certainly something to look out for. Yeah. Is there anybody keen to comment on psychosis? It's a new one I've put in. Yeah. Whoever, Lisa, Jerry, whoever. I don't know if Jerry's still with us or not.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Go on, Jerry. Yeah, go on, Jerry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was sorry. I was struggling there to get through there. I don't know. I mean, I was trying to get into asking a question about 5 minutes ago, but I mean, psychosis covers a lot, really, doesn't it? You know. I mean, I suppose you would have to really kind of evaluate it at the time, you know, and doing your own discernment with it, really, you know. If it's a condition, or, you know, how the condition is, if it's been diagnosed, if there's doctors involved, really, you know, professionals for that, we're really needing. Aye. Well,
absolutely.
Good.
You bang on there, Jerry.
Right.
Again, like a lot of other things, it's about the level. We know that we work with people who are hearing voices telling them to harm themselves, telling them to harm other people, which is obviously really serious. But they may already have a mental health worker supporting them. They may be on medication to help them manage that, and equally so, there's people that maybe that's being managed a lot better for them. So it does. Lisa, is there anything you still got your hand up? Is there anything you wanted to add before we move on?
No, not at all. It was just on the level talking about the psychosis. To say psychosis, obviously, that's something that a doctor would diagnose. Psychosis is a diagnosis. So coming and saying psychosis makes me automatically think that there's already been a diagnosis there under the Mental Health Act. There should be things in place for them already. And there's lots of people out there that live on a daily basis with psychosis. And again, if it's managed, you know, that shouldn't really be a problem. The same with depression. Depression is a whole spectrum in itself, you know, and is it diagnosed? Are you getting treated? Is the support there? That all makes huge differences to how they interact within the job club or the life skills club or whatever it is that we're running at the time.
Yeah, you've just added in the bits there, Lisa, that I was going to add at the end. So that's absolutely
Sorry.
brilliant. No, that's good. It's really good. That's a good thing. It's so kind of things. If somebody's whether any mental health issue or even physical health issue, people are sharing. You know, one of the good things to say is, you know, can I ask if that's being diagnosed, and what treatment or support are you getting with that? Because, you know, that's the next step, isn't it? If somebody's sharing something like that, and then we're going to come back to kind of how we do that. So that's a really, really helpful thing. So that's great, everybody. So I do this exercise to then say to people, is this black or white? Clearly it's neither. And if we look at the next slide, because that's what safeguarding's like. Sometimes it's really clearly, obviously safeguarding, and sometimes it's clearly not. We didn't mention the child with the mobile phone, did we? No, normally people chip in and say it's not safeguarding to not give your child a mobile phone. Clearly, it's not safeguarding, but there's some things that clearly aren't safeguarding, some things that clearly are. But a lot of the time, not maybe most, I'd say the majority of the time, it's that grey area where we know there's a concern, but we're not sure, and we might need to have some more information. So that's the kind of where that was going. So kind of key things to ask around that is there harm or risk of harm? Does it involve a child? This is going back to the beginning. Does it involve the child or an adult at risk? If so, it's statutory safeguarding and you need to refer it. But if no, then we're still asking, does somebody need protection or help? So that's a starting point. And then from that, we start to look at risks. So we might have identified there's issues, but then we can start to whether it's psychosis, whether it's addiction, whatever the issue, then we start to think about what are the possible risks. So who's at risk? Is it just the person, the member or whoever, or is it a risk to somebody else within the family, within the group, you? There's plenty of people that might be at risk from things, and other risks high or low, and what factors, because this is where the more information comes in, what factors can we get? You charged on there, didn't you? that will help us decide whether we reduce risk or not. So there's this concept of professional curiosity. I would say, I don't know if people, I keep saying people might not have heard of it, but I think we've been talking about this for a couple of years now, so a lot of people may have heard of this, and the idea is that I think in the past with safeguarding we've kind of, you've got to be careful not to ask too many questions, and if somebody wants to tell you something, that's fine, but don't delve too deeply. But actually, what professionals were finding is that people weren't asking enough questions, so actually it was things were being missed. So there's this idea of professional curiosity now, and if we look at the next slide, this is about where you actually proactively explore things with an individual, with a family, rather than making assumptions based on that, and that it's okay to safely ask more questions and get some more detail. Yeah, so it's actually moving away and saying, I always say it's about being a bit nosy, and I always think to be involved in social work and safeguarding like I am, you've got to be a bit nosy, and but in a nice way. That's why it's professional curiosity. It's you do need to explore that a bit more, and if somebody's raised something with you, then that's usually a good indicator that they're okay to talk about it. So they wouldn't have raised it if they didn't want to. So usually it's a good a way into exploring that a bit further. But the proviso at the bottom there is that the thing, we're not social services, we're not a statutory safeguarding agency. It's not our role to do a full comprehensive assessment on somebody, but it is okay if somebody's shared something or we've been alerted to something, just to ask a little bit more, to try and get a bit more information, a bit more context, because then that'll help you and your safeguarding officer decide whether any action's needed. And so kind of saying questions such as who lives in the household, what support networks do you have? That's really helpful in terms of context, that if somebody's sharing about suicide ideation or suicide risk, then knowing if they're alone or knowing if they've got support networks, both personal and professional, really helps. So asking things about that, but kind of getting into the exactly what happened, why did people do something, what led to this, that might be for other agencies. That we're not the police, we're not social services. We just want to get a bit of context, so we've got a better understanding of whether somebody's at risk and whether we need to take any action. Okay, any questions around that? We're going to look at that a bit more and how we do that. Thanks, Emily. So, as saying, risk evaluation, it's a brief overview. we're not doing detailed risk assessments. I always say, when I was a social worker, if we'd been working with a family, me and a colleague would go and sit for a couple of days writing huge reports for the court all about risk. That's not our job. We're just talking about a quick overview of what we think the risks are. So we need to be thinking about what the risk is. Is it serious or immediate? Which is, I know, I can't remember the name of the gentleman who first spoke up about the suicide risk, the immediate one. There may be an immediate risk and something that needs quite urgent action. And on occasions, both here in Bradford and around our CAP centres, we've had to ring 999 to get people emergency support for a number of reasons. So occasionally we do need to do that, and there may be other risks that are quite immediate as well. But so deciding that, and then looking at, assuming there's no immediate action, assuming it's not an emergency, then start to look at what things increase risk and what things reduce risk. And we're going to have an activity for you to just explore that now. So I always use this example. I don't know if it makes sense to anybody else, but it always makes sense to me. So if you're driving and you use your mobile phone, it increases risk both to you and to others. If you wear your seatbelt, there's big campaigners at the moment about wear your seatbelt, it reduces risk. It doesn't get rid of it, but it reduces risk. Safeguarding's the same. There's things that will increase risk and there's things that may reduce risk, and they don't eliminate risk, but they're really good things to look at. Because if somebody says, I'm feeling suicidal, then where do you go with that? If somebody's saying, I'm at risk of abuse from so and so, then where do you go with that? If somebody's talking to you about domestic abuse, where that on its own, it's really hard to tell how much risk there is. So got a little task here. Same principle as before. Read the things in the green boxes and decide, as a general rule, do you think that thing is likely to, if this is for any sort of concern, so any of the concerns we're talking about for members or anybody else, any of the issues, if they're, for example, if they're got low self-esteem, is that more likely to reduce the risk to them or increase the risk to them? And the same for all the others. There'll always be what ifs, but just as a general rule. So again, when you're ready, hands up, and you go. Chris, he was keen last time there. Chris, set us going again.
I would say if children are going to school, that's good. I think that's a good sign. It reduces risk as an ex-teacher.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd say spot on with that, because we know that schools are best placed to keep an eye on children. That's what they're really clued into it. They see them 5 days a week. They notice little differences. So if there's children involved and they're at school, so when we're working with families and we've got a concern that might be including concerns about children, if we know that they're of school age and they're going to school, then that reduces the anxiety I would have about that family. It doesn't mean that all the risks are gone, but I know that the school will be on that. So that's absolutely right. That would reduce the risk. Who's next? Lisa?
Hi, me again. So I was looking at social isolation as an increased stress, because obviously it's kind of cutting you off from routes to support. It can also affect like your self-esteem, being able to ask for help and things like that. But when you're socially isolated, you don't have that support system there to fall back on and to seek support and to be supported to get the support. So social isolation would be a big one for me.
Yeah, fine. Alan? Thanks, Lisa. Alan?
I would say if they engage with coaches, that would reduce their risk.
Yeah. So people that are going to engage with you are more likely to be a lower risk than people that won't. Yeah. Jerry? You with us, Jerry? Are you able to unmute?
How's that? Is that it?
Yeah.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, with a bit issues with this thing. I'm new to these devices.
Fine.
Right. I'm not registered with the GP. I think it's a bit of a warning sign there. Shows a bit of isolation and cut off. You know, and it's a kind of increased risk there.
Absolutely. One of the kind of, obviously one of our go-to agencies when we're worried about people is their GP, and so if people are not registered, then that is a concern. Yeah, absolutely. Beverly?
I'd say if you've got a support worker involved, that's going to reduce the risk.
Yep. We'll go through a couple of others and bring it all together. Harriet, thanks, Beverly.
Yeah, good support networks. So it means that the people looking out for them, and it could be family, or it could even be just neighbors, that sort of thing, especially if they're vulnerable.
Yep. Louise?
Hi, I was just thinking that children present is a bit of a yes and no, because I'm thinking about the age of the children. Like if you've got a little baby, that might make you a little bit more vulnerable potentially. But if you've got older kids, that might actually be helpful. It seems a bit of a, I'm not sure, you know, it could fall in, it depends on what the family makeup is and how the children are. You know, if you've got a disabled child, you know, there's all those things. So children present per se could be anything.
Louise, that is super and spot on. Me and Emily are smiling here because that one's the one in the middle that could be either or. And you're absolutely right. You answered that brilliantly. It depends on the children and the situation. So, I always use the example, if you've got, say, a parent who maybe is suffering with their mental health and maybe suicidal thoughts, if they've got a teenager living at home who's quite clued in and is helping to monitor, maybe in a bit of a caring role, and they can pick up the phone and ring for help if needed. Whereas if they had very young children, then that might increase people's concern. And it, you know, so it can be either. It can work both ways. So that's why we deliberately stick that one in. Is there anybody else that would we? No, that's fine. I always say, now, if you go back to it, sorry, Emily, I always say to people, and you answered brilliantly all of these, it's not rocket science. People sometimes worry that safeguarding a risk and you've got to be an expert. We can keep it really simple. There are really obvious things that would make us more worried, like it's really simple. If somebody's isolated, if they haven't got support networks, they've got no professional support involved, no family involved, if they've got, say, maybe mobility issues or communication issues, all that, you know, if they're not confident, if they don't engage, if they don't answer the phone, if they don't respond to messages, all of those things might make us a little bit more worried if there's a concern about them. Whereas all the opposite, so if they're engaging, if they always answer their phone, if they respond to messages, if they've got family and friends around them, if they've got a support worker involved, if they're quite confident, all those things kind of reduce the risk. None of these things eliminate risk, but it's really, really straightforward. Go on, Ruth.
Yep, I just wanted to say about the always answers the phone. I see where you're coming from, but there's also something to look out for coercive behaviour. If somebody's always answering their phone to somebody who is trying to control them, that could be something we need to look out for. Yeah,
absolutely. There's also I don't put it on there. I don't know. It's on the previous slide. I put something about constantly messaging people. Yeah, that might be actually a sign of something that's a concern. It might not be, but in the same way, you're absolutely right. You don't ever take like some people like to be on their own. So if somebody's socially isolated, for example, doesn't mean that they're at risk. What we're saying is it may be an indicator if there was a concern about them. But you're absolutely right. Just because somebody's answers the phone doesn't mean that they're not being coerced or there's no concerns around that. Excellent, thanks. So that's the basic principle of it. Some things may increase risk, some things may reduce risk. And they're kind of the areas to look at. I always say the two, if you're working with anybody, the two key kind of areas are who's in their household and what support networks they've got, whether that's professional or personal, and both. They're the two. I mean, there's lots of areas we could explore, but if you have a limited opportunity, they're really things that help to know. Because if you're concerned about somebody, knowing who's in their household and what their support networks are will really, really help in kind of deciding whether any other actions needed to support them. Thanks, Emily. So we're going to just think about thresholds now. Thresholds for CAP. Obviously, you church will have guidance on this as well. And I think it's okay for us to have quite low thresholds. And sometimes you might just feel uneasy about something. And people talk about, oh, it just didn't feel right. Or it just, gut instinct, people talk about, it just didn't feel right. And every time I've spoken to a coach or a manager, whether it's in life skills or debt centres or job clubs, whatever, and they've raised that, I'm a bit worried about this, but because it just didn't feel right. And then subsequently, when we've got further down the line, and we've often spoken to another professional who is involved, they say, can you tell your manager or coach they were absolutely spot on, and they were right? Because if you're thinking this doesn't quite feel right, then it probably doesn't. It probably is. It doesn't mean that there's a huge risk, but it's a good place to start. And we've all got life experience and common sense, and so don't think, oh, we have no evidence, because you start to look at what are the indicators. There might not be clear evidence, but there'll be indicators. So it's okay to have quite a starting point that's low, and the reason for that is, if we move on, that the safeguarding officers after that, they'll maybe have higher thresholds in terms of they'll need to look at if there is enough indicators or evidence in order to take some action. But if you'll need a starting point to go to them. And then I've got my graph next. I love my little graph. So when we're starting out and identifying a potential concern, our thresholds are quite low. If we decide to refer that to a safeguarding officer and get some advice, it's a bit higher. If they then decide to refer it to a safeguarding agency or another agency, a bit higher still. If that agency says, yeah, we think we need to assess this, then they're going to have a slightly higher threshold. They're not going to assess every referral they get, are they? So they'll have a gatekeeping and a higher threshold. If they then, their assessment leads to some action, it'll have a higher threshold still. So that at each stage, there will be a gateway and a higher threshold to move on. So if we started too high, then we're going to miss a lot of these things. So it's actually quite natural, and it's okay for our thresholds to be fairly low in terms of, is there just something that we're not sure about, that we've got concerned about, that we want to explore a bit more. So that's what I'd say about threshold. I can't tell you, sit there and say, no, you're all right to go on to the next one, Emily, that's fine. I can't tell you that there's an absolute line, and this is when you should and this is when you shouldn't for each type of case. What I'm saying to you is, please don't feel that, oh, I've got to have more evidence, so I need to have a higher concern before I can start to seek advice. Because our responsibilities are to identify potential concerns. It's to record those concerns and to refer on to other agencies as appropriate. And it might be you, or it might be your safeguarding officer that does that. and to offer support to members. As I was saying, not all will be a statutory safeguarding issue. Actually, most won't, but that's what we're about. In terms of reporting, we ask you to go to your church safeguarding officer. We ask for every CAP centre to have somebody nominated as their safeguarding officer. So if you're in a situation where there's several churches supporting you, you really just want one safeguarding officer, because you want to be going to the same person, not to different people. It's usually your lead church or where your centre's based. And we ask that because obviously we can't do all the safeguarding nationally, and it's only right that it should be done locally with somebody who knows local services. So hopefully your safeguarding officer will be aware of some agencies and support systems in your area, and it's somebody that you can actually build a rapport with, and you may already know, and you go into the same person. So that's why we ask you to do that. If you are ever in, sorry, just go back. If you're ever in a situation where you need some urgent advice and you haven't got a safeguarding officer to go to, maybe they're on leave, they're poorly, you're between safeguarding officers and there isn't one at the moment, they're just not available, and you don't know where else to go, then you ring us. At the end, you'll have my phone number and my email. You can get a hold of me. You can ask if I'm not in, there's the safeguarding team here, and we've got a number of safeguarding coordinators here. Although they would tend to work on the debt side, they're safeguarding trained, and they will, we're not having anybody feeling that they can't get advice and they'll be alone. So if you're ever in that situation, do feel that you can contact us. So you need to unmute, Sue.
Is there an emergency contact number?
Well, I'll add that to the slides before they go out. So my number's on there, and my number on there is direct number, but I'll check what the best number is if you were ringing CAP, the office here, and yeah, I'll put that on the slide so that you got it. Yeah. Thanks. So thanks, Emily. So in terms of recording, this is the easy bit for me and you at this stage, because we don't keep detailed records here in Bradford on our Life Skills and Job Club members. We don't generally keep safeguarding records on them. So if you've reported something to your safeguarding officer locally, between you and them, you'll keep those records, and that's fine. If we do have things raised with us for advice, then we do record it, because then there's a record. So I have had occasions where I've spoken to managers and coaches about both Life Skills and Job Clubs members and situations that are going on, and give them some advice, and we do log it on our CPOM system then, because then there is a record, and we can share that with your church. If that then needs doing, it's not a problem. We can let them know about it. We also have a staff safe system, so if we had concerns about the well-being and the risk to members of staff like yourselves, then we can record that on there. Good thing about it's really confidential. It's on a staff safe system that only I get to see, so that's pretty confidential. Sue, have you got another question, or is it from before? No, it's fine. You can ask more than one. It's fine. So yeah, so we don't generally need to worry about recording, but we can if needed. No, sorry, it's fine, Emily. So lastly, I wanted to think about kind of risk issues for yourselves, because people forget about that, and we have had issues that crop up where both for our debt centres, our Life Skills and the Job Clubs, people being at risk. And I would always kind of advise against lone or one-to-one working. That doesn't mean you can never sit talking to somebody on a one-to-one, but you're going to have thought about it. That's not, but I'll give you an example. We've had one where somebody was doing some one-to-one coach, life skills coach, but in the client's home on their own. And in some ways they weren't at risk, but then the client made some allegations. And you're not covered then, and you've got to look at it. It's sad that we have to think about these things, but we do. So and you know, I would say you will never be sure who would be there. It's with our debt centres, we always insist our debt centre managers and coaches visit with a befriender, that we say you'd never to visit on your own, because you just don't know what situation may arise. There could be somebody different that you weren't expecting there. So I know most of your work will take place in your churches, in your centres, but I would kind of just advise caution in terms of any lone work. But in terms of one-to-one work, I kind of suggest that if you need to speak to somebody one-to-one, then it's in the building and there's other people around, even if they're not in the room with you. Chris.
Yeah, I mean, there's sight lines, isn't it? And open doors, perhaps.
Yeah.
If you've got to have a one-to-one with someone, you just cover yourself with making sure someone's got eyes on you. I would have thought that's the best policy.
And that's protecting you and the member, because they may feel at risk, and we don't know what's been going on in their lives, and that they you know, but it protects you as well from any allegations, as well as your own safety if something were to happen. So yeah, it's just there. You know, I think there's some guidance on that, but it is one of the things we're going to look at. So it's been raised with me by some centre managers, but also a couple of area managers, about kind of guidance about working in risk conditions, both kind of where there's risk to yourself, but maybe where risk to other members of your group. So if somebody comes in, I've had situations where people have ended up virtually harassing and stalking fellow members via WhatsApp and things like that. We've had situations where people have got more serious mental health issues, and they may have a history of violent outbursts and all sorts of things. And it's about how we make sure kind of your group is as safe as possible and you're as safe as possible. And so we are looking at whether we put out a bit more. It may be that people don't need it, that's fine. Some, you know, say we all got different experiences, but we are looking at I've been asked to create some guidance and some training that you can all access, just with some general guidance about things around that. So we are going to look at that, and it's there if people need it. So if there is, as you get into your roles, I know you're doing your training now, but as you get more into your roles, if there are things both around training and guidance about anything around safeguarding that, then let me know, because that's what our role is, to equip churches and equip centres. We're not there to do everything for you. You're perfectly well able to do that. But what we can do is hopefully help with equipping people. So if there is anything that you think, for example, we've done some training on coercive control, which is a lot more hidden than domestic violence. So I'm myself and 3 colleagues here are qualified to train in terms of domestic abuse and coercive control. So we've trained the debt advisors here, but we're looking at putting on some training and some workshops for our local services, which is yourselves as well as the debt centres. So there's things like that where we're looking at things around suicide prevention and things like that. So that's a key area we're looking at. So if there are things that crop up and you think it would really help to have some more guidance and training around that, then please do let us know, and let me know, because we will look at that. So we're ahead there. We've come through. We've finished 10 minutes early, which is fine. Has anybody got any other questions they want to raise now in the group? If there's anything you think of when you look at slides or think about afterwards, or anything as you get into your roles, anything you want clarification on or want some guidance on, you've got my email address. Just email me. I'm really good at I might not, it might take a few days for emails to get responded to, but if there's ever anything urgent and that, then please do ring me. I trust people would only ring me if it was urgent. So if you ever did need any urgent advice, then you have my direct number, and that's fine. So thank you for joining. Thank you for taking part. You've been absolutely excellent. It's better when you're involved, and good luck with the rest of the equip.